Welcome to the Across the Bar podcast, where we talk about why today's headlines are important for your success at work. My name is Peter Rahbar, and I'm your first call on legal issues.
And I'm Laura Brounstein, your first call on content and comms issues. All right, we are going to introduce a new element to Across the Bar, Peter.
Love it.
Very excited about this. And we've given it a cheeky little name. We're calling it the Peter Meter every week. Oh, we're going to have a totally
Something tells me I'm going to get roasted over this.
We're totally going to have a graphic for this by next week. I would like to know, Peter, were you busier this week with hirings or firings? I think this is a good look at the economy. Which one was making Peter busier each week? Tell me.
I think the slight nod to hiring this week, it seems to have picked up, although firing is still going on. And I would say that the frustrating thing about firing is that employers aren't being so nice in how they're doing it. So there's a lot more
in the
disputes.
actual way they're doing it, or what they're offering in compensation?
Yeah, both. Like how messages are communicated, how employees are treated on the way out, and also the packages that are being offered. And in fact, I would say some companies are looking for any way possible to reduce the amount of severance they pay to people on the way out, which is pretty shameful.
Because they're so tight money-wise, or just people are not interested in that anymore?
That's what they'll say. My view is that in this environment, there's no check on their behavior, really. And so they're just sort of pushing their behavior to the boundaries. And it plays out in different ways, including paying people severance.
So all of this, you're seeing bad behavior is trickle down from an administration who is no longer putting in any system of checks and balances for corporate behavior.
Well, the only checks and balances they put
has in policing certain kind of corporate behavior.
Well, I'd say their policing comes and goes with their personal views on the companies, and that's probably the worst way to do it. But it's not, standard regulatory checks and balances that we're used to, and the agencies that did that have effectively been neutered.
Yes. What are some of the agencies that did that you would say have been neutered?
The EEOC, which we've talked about in prior episodes, the Department of Labor, OSHA, the Fair Trade Commission, CFTC. There's a bunch of them
and they've been gutted by DOJ.
Well, they've either been gutted or they've been neutered, and some of that has caused a massive backlog that they'll probably never get back from. Agency priorities have changed. Regulations have disappeared with no public comment. So there's a whole host of problems you could go through that have caused this. Also, people running these agencies who are not really have very different agendas. And so there's a lot of different ways it plays out.
All right. Let's get to the whole. All right. Now we've done the Peter meter and discussed why people are not being nice. And we are going to talk about war, which is the frightening elephant-fueled elephant in the room. Get it? See what I did there with the elephant?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
We're going to talk about Anthropic and OpenAI's ongoing conversations with the government about doing very frightening things. A funny article in the Wall Street Journal about everyone's least favorite corporate jargon. Whatever is going on, whatever day of the week you hear this, whatever we tell you is happening with the law firms and sanctions may be different, but we're going to talk about that mess. And then we're going to talk about good marketing and bad marketing, and how McDonald's and Target and Burger King are experiencing that this week. All right, Peter, war. What's it good for? Is it good for the stock market? What's it good? What would you say? How would you say it is playing out economically before we get to the humanity toll?
Yeah, I mean, first of all, I have to say, as someone whose family is from Iran and who lives in the United States, I mean, obviously this war hits me. You still have
family there, don't you?
Yeah, I have family in Iran, and I have even more family in Dubai, where there's also been attacks, and I've been in touch with them. Thankfully everyone's okay. And first off, I want to express my condolences for the troops the American troops who were killed, the six soldiers who were killed.
Yes, thank you for your service to those Gold Star families, and may their memories be a blessing for our country going forward.
Yeah. obviously would have very mixed feelings about this war and what and why it was commenced and what the objectives may or may not be. We're not exactly clear. They seem to change every day. Certainly, there was a very bad regime in place, still is in place in Iran. Is this the right answer for dealing with it? I'm not sure. But now we're in this, and I support our troops, and I hope for the best outcome possible.
Well, I think we can. I mean, my first reaction was yes, toppling the Ayatollah is a good thing, hopefully. For the regime currently in power in Iran has been so oppressive and killed so many people and protesters just in the last month. But I hope we know what we're doing. I hope we have an actual plan.
Well, he's not a good person, and I don't have any remorse for the fact that he's no longer with us. But we're also not like the police force of the world, and there are plenty of bad people there in the world, and it's not our job to just go kill them. Also, plenty of civilians, the way this has been done, plenty of civilians, thousands in Iran have now died.
Yes.
In the first day of attacks.
There are people dying all over the region right now because
there's people dying all over the region.
Each other.
Yeah, a girls' school was attacked. Over 100 kids died. 5 days later, the Secretary of War still doesn't have an answer on why that school was targeted or what happened. At the same time, saying
it's still from Iranian TV, and it's insane to me that we don't have direct information.
Yeah, I mean, while he's standing there telling us this is the most transparent war ever, it isn't. We had no discussion or debate before we got into it. We have no idea what the objectives are. We have no idea on targeting.
We're bombing haphazardly, it feels like.
Yeah, I mean, we could go down a whole rabbit hole with this. I mean, there are a lot of legal issues.
You know what? I asked the question, what is the economic impact?
Yeah.
I think that is more something we can talk about.
Okay, so we could talk about two things. Definitely the economic impact. We've talked a lot on this podcast about, why layoffs are happening and why hiring is not happening. And my answer to that consistently for the last few months has been the uncertainty in our economy of having an administration that changes its priorities, that changes its tariff practices, that has a Supreme Court that overrules those tariffs. You can't plan and forecast in those environments. And now we have essentially a surprise war sprung on us that has real effects. I mean, it has real effects on oil and gas prices, which many businesses are dependent on. It has effects on world shipping routes. It has impacts on tourism. I mean, tourism is such a crazy large industry.
Think of every meeting that was supposed to happen. That's like
So look at all the people who are stranded. Look at all the people who would go to Dubai because they thought it was a peaceful place, and now maybe they'll think twice about that. So the impacts on business are significant, and they will be very significant. And so, I think in terms of the meter, it's probably going to be weighing more towards the firing in the coming months because companies are going to, just throwing their hands up over what's going on. And you could see the impacts in the stock market on people's retirement savings. So, I mean, the impacts are far reaching. And that's why, war should be a very carefully considered and weighed and debated thing before we enter into it. It should be a measure of last resort. Indeed. Yeah. And, in this situation where we had so much intelligence on where people were at any given moment of the day, you wonder why it had to be done this way. And so
I know it is out of favor right now to quell at the work of the IDF and Mossad, but the fact that they got many of the generals because they had gone undercover as dentists and implanted something that they were able to use for tracking is just fucking ninja.
Well, why didn't you just gas them when they showed up at the dentist? I mean, I don't get it. But I'm not a military officer.
I think it was the bodyguards. Actually, they were working.
The other issue that I think is important that's going to play out is if you look at polling in the U.S., the support for this war is pretty divided, which you will see this issue play out in the workplace. You will see people talking about the war. You will, in certain companies, have, and we'll talk about.
Let's talk about what you should put out to your staff. I do think if you haven't already, putting something out to say, I know working through tumultuous times like this that might be affecting you personally is hard. If you are having particular issues, talk to your manager, something, something, something. Because you do have to allow, I think, for the cognitive dissonance that like you're seeing the news and then getting on a call about like mailers. And
Yeah.
you know, I'm checking in with my family in Israel, you're checking in with your family in Iran. Like people are
People may have
not
family in the
well.
military, you know? I
Yeah.
mean,
Well, good point.
obviously, yeah, I mean, you brought up a very reasonable approach, and companies have been in the mode of not wanting to comment on things since this administration came into power because they didn't want to be caught in the spotlight at all. And so now, how do you deal with the fact that this country's in a war when you didn't want to comment on anything and it's really is weighing on people? And to the
Yeah.
extent it goes on for a few weeks or months or years, like, how are you going to deal with it? And I think the approach you present is sensible, which is no surprise. But
I know,
but I,
Peter. Yeah.
yeah, you are an expert after all. But I would say
I've been
that,
on podcasts at least.
yeah, I mean, I would say like you don't want to take sides in the war, but you want to you want to
No.
acknowledge that it's happening. And
And
I
then
mean,
it's upsetting and people might have personal connections. Get
yeah,
through, if you haven't done this yet with your head of legal, head of HR, head of comms, put together an email, don't obsess, send it out today that just acknowledges the fact that there is a war going on. People may be distracted. People may have
right.
personal issues that they should talk to their manager about. You know, just put out there that you're aware of it. It makes you human.
Right. And when I say don't take sides in the war, I mean like don't take sides on the issue of whether we should be in it or not,
Right,
or
right,
what
right.
roles different countries are playing. Like stay out of that. You could
Yes.
support the troops, you could support the country. I think that's fine, that's admirable.
Civilians everywhere should, we
But
should mourn the dead every of eh, yes, of
yeah, and
every
I think offering employees resources for support, I mean, pointing that out is important. You're also going to
yeah.
have to spend time to the extent you have Slack channels where employees have debates and you allow that. You should ramp up your monitoring to make sure there's
That's a
not
great point.
like inappropriate behavior happening there. Of course,
Well, maybe the
I would not
idea
allow
with
that,
that
but
is tell all of your team leaders to just have their eyes on their team Slack channels. But also, of course, HR can look at every Slack channel. So put on some listening. You might want to set up some listening tools across Slack to make sure things aren't getting nasty.
right. And if you're, you know, public facing CEO or leader, like you should be very careful about what you're saying in public about it. And I think that should be vetted, you know, 100 different ways before you show up on CNBC, you know, saying something about the war or the reasons for it or, you know, etc.
So as we are watching the news about drone strikes, which seem to be playing a pretty large role in the hostilities so far, we are also reading stories about Anthropic and OpenAI and what they are willing to let the government do with their products. And so far, it seems like Sam Altman and OpenAI and ChatGPT are open to a lot more in terms of warfare than the Emodi's and Claude and Anthropic. Would you agree? Is that your assessment?
Well, I mean, it's interesting. Obviously, there was a lot of press over the weekend about the breakup in negotiations between the government and Anthropic, and the reasons why it may or may not have happened. I mean, the reported reasons were, you know, the government said they wanted unfettered ability to use it for any lawful reason. Anthropic wanted certain guarantees that it wouldn't be used for domestic surveillance or complete unmanned warfare.
I.e.,
I
drones.
Well, it's more than drones. It's targeting of
Robots.
missiles, you know, without human involvement. I mean, I think it's more than that. And that was one story, but the real story is there were some personalities involved. I mean, these are the person in the government who was overseeing the negotiation had a long history with Dario and people around
What was the
Anthropic.
history?
Well, it's not good. So that's what we saw playing out. And then there's also, you know, part of the
Wait, give us more
criticism.
background. What was the story? Do you know?
Well, there's some personality differences. There's also some government officials who have significant investments in OpenAI and not Anthropic, there are also government officials who have investments in Anthropic. I mean, it's part of the reason why there was so much concern over potential conflicts. I mean, there are people with major investments in these companies. And so they walked away from the table. They made statements about each other. Dario put out a memo to his employees saying, they're being penalized for not kissing up to Trump. But today, as we're talking, they're back at the table because Claude is an essential part of so many systems that the government is using and that Palantir is using, and the most successful results are being achieved through AI-directed targeting that is using Claude. And so there's a reason for them to want to use it.
The targeting is better with Claude than with ChatGPT?
So far, and it's a more common use case. And I can 1,000% guarantee you that Dario knew that when he was, stiffening up his spine to take a stand against, Emil Michael and Pete Hegseth and the other cast of characters.
I knew Emil Michael years ago when he was at Uber.
Yeah.
Yeah, that didn't work out. But.
So, look, it's part of a trend. Some companies now are not being so shy about taking a stand against this administration, and maybe they view this administration as a lame duck.
Very few companies are
very few.
Like, what are other ones that you can even think of?
Well, there's a number of companies that are taking a pretty strong positions on tariffs and getting tariff refunds and suing the government over that. And very publicly, they're not standing behind a chamber of commerce or anything. These are big retailers and other companies that are doing that. We also have...
I have lost track of what is happening with the tariffs, to be honest. One of the things this war is for, honestly.
Yeah, well, the president yesterday said that he actually won the case on the tariffs, which is funny. Just because he says something doesn't mean it's true.
He thinks he won a lot of things that he didn't win.
He lost.
So this is like a base personality trait.
So there is actually a lawsuit that is in front of the court that's going to, give refunds to companies, and that was allowed to proceed. The government tried to stop it, and the court said no, it's allowed to proceed. So good luck with that. There's the companies in Minnesota who took a stand against ICE.
Well, yeah, the Minnesota one,
and that was pretty significant.
Here's the question for our listeners: if you have you're running a mid-sized to large company and you're making AI decisions, should what's going on right now in Washington affect whether you are choosing one or the other for your operating system for the company? Do you think?
Well, the other interesting thing that happened after this weekend is that Claude literally crashed because it was used more than ever. Like, people flooded towards Claude in support of the position they took. There's also now employee petitions going around OpenAI and Google and other companies that want similar protections in their dealings with the government.
Do you think they will be successful or matter to the powers that be?
They have to take them seriously. I mean, they have to take them seriously because the talent war in the AI space is so crazy.
That's a good point.
And you can't just ignore it. It's important. And the people who work on AI, like there are a lot of cases of employees leaving companies over how they are building their products and the lack of safeguards or
did you see that
other positions.
Ben Affleck's AI company got bought by Netflix for a good amount of money?
You love Ben Affleck.
I love him. Yeah.
Congrats to Ben Affleck.
I know.
Another business success for him.
Speaking of President Trump, there is this was an interesting week in the fast food burger wars.
Good one. Good one. I like that.
So you may have seen that McDonald's has a new burger, the McArch, I think they call it. I could be wrong.
Big Arch.
Big Arch. They should have called it McArch.
This is quite the pivot, by the way, from a real war to a burger war.
Well, I had a mechanism.
You pulled it off.
I'm doing a weave like our commander in chief.
Ooh, wow. Got jokes.
Okay, so the CEO of McDonald's did a Instagram post about the new burger and was immediately mocked around the world for the tiny little bite he took of this sandwich in this crazy way. It was like, And then he showed, like, look at this big bite. And there was barely anything out of it. And then the CEO of Burger King did a spot with a Burger King burger that he took a bigger bite out of. Now there's an Instagram post from McDonald's about big bites. I kind of love this old school fast food war.
Yeah, this is more your area of expertise, but I do love a good hamburger. And I've met the McDonald's CEO. He's a great guy. He's a Duke alum, Chris Kempczynski. I will say in his defense, he's not like a huge guy, so I'm not surprised that he did not take
like a little man.
He's on the smaller side, and this is a very big burger. I mean, we're like multiple patties, multiple sauces. It looks disgusting, actually, but his bite was pretty small. I fault his PR team for not substituting in a bigger burger there.
That's social. Whoever was in charge. People, if you are making a video with your principal, with your boss, always do a test run and see what it looks like.
Right.
Jesus Christ.
Like when they zoomed in, like when he put the burger down and they zoomed in on the bite, they could have put any burger there. Yeah, they could have put a bigger one there.
This was like this team did not do well, but also making it, jumping right on it and laughing along with everyone is always smart.
And the Burger King guy took a bite and he had like sauce all over his face. Yeah, great. Cool. I actually thought the worst video
has some more swagger. Anyway, the Burger King CEO.
Yeah, he seems like down-to-earth guy. He's wearing an apron in the kitchen. Okay, fine. I actually thought the lamest video was the Wendy's CEO. He took multiple bites. He was like devouring their burger.
That one.
But their burger had nothing on it. It looked disgusting. It was like a plain burger with nothing.
Now I want a burger for lunch.
Go for it. It's almost lunchtime. Go for it.
It is. I'm hungry. Okay. Another big company getting batted about less successfully. Target just announced they are lowering their company bonuses to 75%, so 25% less than it would have been this year because of bad forecasts. And I was just talking to a retail industry expert friend of mine who has worked with Target in the past, and this is, in my opinion, and in this person's opinion, a lot of this is because a lot of their customers were Black, and when they announced they were getting rid of DEI and pulled a lot of those programs, their Black customers saw it and said, nah, and didn't come back. And now they're trying all these things to get them to come back, and it's kind of too little too late. They're going to have to do something a lot more impressive.
Yeah, Target's been struggling with this ever since it happened. I don't think it's just Black customers. It's all customers who would just care about companies having values, and when there's real
that they did have a big Black customer base before.
Sure, I mean that's certainly relevant, but it's also there's real alternatives to Target. I mean, you don't have to shop there if you don't think they're a great company that aligns with your values, and I think more than ever customers are making those choices both ways, right? And so they're paying a steep price, and unfortunately their employees are paying a steep price because of it. At some point, hopefully, I mean, Target's a great company, and hopefully, they're able to recover from it. But it's a great example of like really stick to your values as a company. I mean, find a way to stick to your values. If you're worried about the publicity, people like Robbie Starbuck, the podcaster who pushed them into this, they come and go. But your values and your reputation, they're going to be there forever, and they should be clear and they should be articulated and followed.
You can be, you can get in trouble for almost anything in this environment. So stick to your principles.
You think?
At least if you're going down doing something you believe in is sort of one of my perspectives.
Yeah. I mean, something you could defend, something that aligns with your values. And like, if this administration is going to go after you for it, or the tag along people who are associated with it, then fine, they'll be gone soon, but your company's going to be around forever, and you're going to have to deal with these things. Well,
they could be or not.
Yeah, I mean, Target's not going anywhere, but it's definitely paying a pretty steep price.
That's what the nice people at Bamberger's and Lord and Taylor said.
Oh my God, Bamberger's. Wow.
Okay, a quick one that's funny. There's an article in the Wall Street Journal this week about corporate jargon people hate. I totally use corporate jargon. I think it's helpful. Do you hate it?
Well, you have to, right? I mean, you have clients. You have to be jargony with them, corporate
Or
clients.
just when you're doing official comms, sometimes you want to rely on like phrases that are already pressure tested.
Well, do you have a favorite and a most hated phrase?
Oh no, what's yours?
My most hated is reset. I hate that concept. We need a reset. We need to, do something because it's a reset. I hate that.
Why?
Um,
Why?
I just think it's stupid. I don't know.
You are like, okay, you're all talking crazy. Let's come back to center.
No, it's usually something bigger. There's that. I mean, first of all, I hate corporate jargon overall. I work with individuals. I don't have to deal with it that much, but sometimes I look at their correspondence or their performance reviews and like, particularly some of the tech companies, I read them. I'm like, was this written by a human being? Like, what are these words?
Yes.
And it's
an email saying, hey, I've definitely said like, I hate to say this, but I am circling back. Like,
I mean,
when
circling
somebody
back
does
seems
and you need
fine.
to come back to them. That's what you're doing.
Circling back seems fine. One of the things that was in there that I didn't realize was a problem was telling someone you have a hard stop. And I use that all the time, but someone in the article said that implies that your schedule is more important than theirs. I don't think so.
I don't agree. I think it's polite to tell people if you're going to have a hard out, so they're not surprised by it.
Hard stop.
Hard out. Stop.
Hard stop.
Same difference. Whatever. All right, let's do our heroes and zeros.
But don't overuse it, I guess, is the issue,
I think
right?
it's be aware when you're using it that it's a little bit canned, and so like any spice, use it judiciously.
Yeah. I mean, before we go to heroes and zeros, we got to talk about the law firms because
Oh my God.
that's been quite a week on that issue.
So I have not checked the news in the last 10 minutes. What is the latest?
Well, earlier this week, the government announced that it was withdrawing its appeals of the executive orders that were found to be unlawful against certain law firms. And if you remember months ago, is one of the first things the administration did was go after law firms and say, you can't work with the government anymore, you're banned, blah, blah, blah. Certain law firms caved right away, certain challenged them. All those that challenged won their challenges. And so the government said, we're going to withdraw these. And the judge said, how embarrassing to reverse yourself after all this bad press you got. And indicated she'd allow them to withdraw it. And, it was like sort of a story. And then the next day, the government said, no, we've changed our mind. We're not going to withdraw it. And they filed, this is the motion they filed. This is the actual title. A motion to withdraw the motion to voluntarily dismiss the appeal.
Say it one more time. A motion to withdraw.
The motion to voluntarily dismiss the appeal.
Oh my God.
I've never seen that motion.
As a lawyer, don't you know that that's a problem when you're writing that?
Yeah, it's kind of embarrassing.
Yeah.
And so now they're back, I presumably because they didn't like the press, portraying them as losers. So, they're still going to lose, by the way. So
yeah, but I feel like they look more like losers like this. But and just so everybody remembers, this is the law firms that would or would not go along with what the Trump administration demanded. What did they demand? I can't even remember now.
Like in the settlements, they wanted like tens of millions of dollars of pro bono work.
What were they suing them for? I can't even remember.
Well, they were suing them because they took on partners who used to work on cases that were against the president. Jesus. So it was like a very personal attack. They had partners who handled cases against them, whether they were in their private practice or in the DOJ at the time or in the FBI, whatever it was.
Okay.
Unbelievable and believable at the same time.
Fair. All right, jump in.
Heroes and zeros.
Heroes and zeros.
Zeros. So I've been on a lot of airplanes lately, and I have to say
you have been flying around a lot lately.
Yeah, I would have to say my zeros are people who, to me, I can't even believe they do it, but insist on watching videos or listening to music without headphones on airplanes. That? Yeah, who does that?
Aren't they told to stop?
Well, we had to tell someone to stop on a flight this past Friday. It didn't go so well.
What happened? Oh my God! Did you get in a fight? Did you get kicked off a plane?
No. I wasn't the one listening to it. Like, I don't even know why you'd want to do it.
With somebody?
I mean, the guy, had a reaction and then tried to have a discussion that I wasn't interested in having.
You had an in-flight altercation?
No, no, it was just a stupid person. But right after this flight,
You're not
United Airlines announced that they're cracking down on this too. So kudos
good.
to United Airlines.
All right.
But anyway, don't
That's
do it. Don't be that person. Whether it's the plane or the subway or the street, I don't get this trend at all. Put on your headphones.
Put on your headphones. Is it hard? No. I agree with that completely.
Yeah.
I had such a good zero and I can't remember it. I'm going to do my
Wow.
hero. I know that's out of order, hoping that my zero will come back.
My zero was so good. You forgot your zero.
Do you want to do your zero? Do both of yours together and then maybe I'll remember mine?
Sure. My hero is the return of Formula One, which I know you're also excited about. Starts tonight. Race from Melbourne, and there's a lot of changes coming to Formula One this year that you'll hear about. The cars changed, the broadcaster has changed. It's now you can watch it on Apple, and a friend of mine is leading that project, and it's
That's
very
interesting.
exciting. And
Yeah.
you'll be able to watch it in IMAX theaters and Netflix and all these great, brand growth opportunities for Formula One. But very exciting.
Yeah.
They actually experienced some logistical issues because people had to get down to Australia and they were all in the Middle East. So that led to some interesting issues.
Yeah.
But I'm told they're all there and everything's ready to go tonight. So I'm a big
Right.
Formula One fan, so I'm excited about it.
What do you like about it?
Oh, man, if you ever go to a race, like the thrill of the cars going by you at 200 miles an hour is like insane. It's
When you're not at the race, what is good to watch about it on TV? Like just cars driving in a circle.
well, it's global. There's a lot of brands attached to it. The drivers have great personalities. The Netflix show Drive to Survive gives you
Okay.
great
People
behind
got
the
to know them,
scenes.
kind of.
There's a lot of drama. You get to know them. It is and the drivers are real insane athletes. Driving a car that goes that fast, doing the stuff they do, most drivers can't do that. NASCAR drivers can't deal with the G-forces and the pulls that these guys are dealing with. So it's really interesting.
Okay. Okay. I remembered mine. My
Great.
zero is good for Netflix, but I am very worried about the Ellisons owning CNN. I love CNN. I have it on all day. I do think they give a very reasoned approach to coverage. I love Kate Baldwin and Sarah Seidner and Dana Bash and
Caitlin Collins, come on.
Caitlin Collins and Abby Phillips.
You
I
like
enjoy
Abby
Big
Phillips?
Tracker. I love Abby Phillips. Love her. Love her.
Okay, all right.
You know what? She was given this show to make interesting. She was given this show with this format, and I think she does a brilliant job. As
Okay.
brilliant a job as anyone could do with what she sort of has to deal with there. Anyway, I really worry about, given what we have seen so far with the Ellison's ownership of CBS, I'm really worried about them owning CNN. So I hope my fears on that don't come to pass, that it doesn't change substantially, but I fear it will. And my hero,
Well, can I just say,
yeah,
there should be everyone, regardless of what your views are on the Ellisons, everyone should be concerned that much news is consolidated in one group's ownership.
yep,
And I think that's a real concern. And I think it's also a concern that, our good friend FCC chair Brendan Carr is already blessing the deal without any substantial review. I think everyone should be
and
concerned
for
about how
Trump
this came
to
about.
signal we are close to having state-owned media in a really, really gross way. That people are not, you don't know what a bad idea this is basically my point. It is bad.
Yep.
Anyway, my hero is dun 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 dun, dun Harrison Ford for winning an actor award for how good Shrinking is, for how cute he and Callista Flockhart are. I would also like to say the worst celebrity interview I've ever done in my life was with Amy Schumer, who was mean. But the second worst was with Harrison Ford, who was very nice, but hated doing interviews to the core of his being. And it was kind of torture for both of us. But I love Harrison Ford. I love the show Shrinking. That is all about kind of everybody's damaged, but if you find community, it all kind of is a little bit better. So that's my hero.
I love Harrison Ford, the actor. I agree with you. I've had some interactions with him that prove that he's very awkward, and I would say he's very private. He doesn't like anything public facing. And so it's kind of like one of those situations where you meet this person you really admire and you're just like so disappointed, but you also love what they do so much that like you're not too affected by it. So
like,
at least he's not a jerk. He's just like very private, and it becomes very awkward. Yeah,
yes.
Exactly.
But also shout out to Bill Lawrence, who keeps making shows about humans connecting. I am very excited for Scrubs return. I loved Scrubs.
Wow. Okay.
I think they're very cute together, the whole cast.
So Bill Lawrence is like a sub-hero for you this week.
Yes, Bill Lawrence is my sub-hero. God, I got a lot of white guy heroes this week. But yes, going with it.
There you go. All right. Well, look.
This was fun.
It's fun. Heavy week. I pray for the safety and peace of everyone in the U.S., in Israel, in Iran, all around the world, Dubai, everywhere.
And for leaders who think about the safety of their people.
Yeah, and our troops. And we will be back next week. Thanks to everyone.
Basically, talk to your team and take bigger bites of burgers.
Yeah.
That seems to be the one to
go end on a light note, yes. So thank you.
Sadie.
Thanks, Sadie. Thanks to everyone for listening, watching. Please share, please subscribe, and we'll see you next week on Across the Bar.